but then I will hand over to my colleagues who will run the show today, and we will talk about eligibility and the details of the application process to give you some tips and tricks and ideas in how you can, tackle this application, which is, we do agree, quite complex. So you can tackle that in a way that you can be successful and join our program like the other innovators, which we have on board since a year. Next slide, please. So, as I said, my name is Michael. I'm the second one here on the picture, but today's show will be mainly facilitated and run by Irene. I will hand over to her in a minute. She will explain you everything on the go. Then we also have Hannah with us. She's managing all the technicalities in the background. And last but not least, a very important person today is Ahmed Hussein. He is also with us, but he's not here. He's actually in the interpretation room. Now, at the bottom, you will see at the bottom of Zoom, there is a little globe with interpretation. If you prefer to watch this presentation and webinar in Arabic, Ahmed will actually translate everything to Arabic. So obviously, if you don't speak English, that would be hard to understand. So Irene, maybe you can just quickly explain that in Arabic as well.
مساء الخير جميعا، يا رب تكونوا بخير. أنا ايرين بغدادي من شركة كيمونكس مع برنامج وي فور اف. احنا بس كنا حابين انكم تبقوا عارفين ان في الجلسه دي رغم ان انا هقدمه بالانجليزي، بس معانا دكتور احمد حزين مدير الدعم الفني معانا في برنامج وي فور اف، هيكون بيترجم الجلسه باللغه العربيه. فاللي حابب يسمع الجلسه باللغه العربيه هتلاقوا على زوم تحت على اليمين في علامة الكرة الأرضية، فحضراتكم تقدروا تضغطوا على العلامة دي وتختاروا اللغة العربية عشان تسمعوا الجلسة بالعربي. هنديكوا يمكن 30 ثانية لو تحبوا تغيروا. Michael, I just mentioned that they can have 30 seconds to just switch to the other channel.
Great. Yes, let's do that, but maybe we can already have a look at the next slide, which is basically the program and just a quick overview on what we will discuss today. So we're in the middle of the welcome. We will just have a short recap on the webinar, on the last webinar, the first one, where you'll find the recordings, and then we will look more at the selection process, the eligibility, and dive a bit deeper into the concept, no questions. And what we want to do today, and what we want to make sure, is that you really understand, the main definitions, the main terms which we are operating all the time. But for some of you, this might be new terms, but we just want to make sure that you understand that and that you can write the application then accordingly and mean the same thing as what we mean when we will then read your applications. We will then just sum it up with some key considerations and also notify you on the next points, what will happen afterwards. The next slide, please. So just before we start, just one point in terms of the questions, what you can, how the questions will work today. We will not have the possibility to answer live questions today. So if you do have any questions, then please write us an email to we4f@berrytech.org and send them to us until the 1st of November. So anything you don't get answered today, if it's specific or it's a general question, doesn't matter, send us an email just with those questions. We will collect all those questions, and then on the 4th of November, our next webinar, we will actually dive into all of those questions and give you an answer to that. So please do not speak today. Don't, please mute yourself. If you have any questions, please write us an email, and then we can properly prepare ourselves and then answer those questions. If you have missed the last webinar, the kickoff, I think it would be very good if you actually go on our official page, and this is we4f.org, and there under innovation calls, you will find the MENA innovation call, and there you will find, if you scroll down a little bit, you will find the recordings of the last webinar. There we have explained, you know, the general the basics of how We4F works and how it's all supposed to work out. So if you haven't listened to that webinar, I think it would be very good to check out the recordings and the documents, so you're sort of up to date and don't miss anything if you want to apply for this program. Next slide, please. Yes, so very important point. You're not the first ones doing this. Huh? So there have been people before you that have managed to write this application, and they have also been successful with it. And one of them is, as for example, Abu Erdan, right, who have applied last time from Egypt, from Cairo, and Neamat, for example, here also is telling us, right? I mean, the process. Okay, it is not that simple. It's not, you have to work a bit on the different points, and but take the process seriously, and what it will do, it will also help you in the process itself to understand your company, and that's what the We4F program is all about. It's not about giving you just money and then we go. It's about what we really want to do. We want to support your organization. We want to support your company and really make it fit for scale. Good. But with that quote, I would like to hand over to Irene, and I would again like to invite everyone to stay muted and don't ask us questions at the moment. If you have any questions, please write us an email. You can do that now, you can do that tomorrow, or at the end of the week. Just write them to us before the 1st of November. Okay, then Irene, the show is yours.
Thanks a lot, Michael. And I'd like to add on to what Michael just said. If, you know, I can see that some of you are beginning to introduce yourselves on this chat, so that's lovely. And it's nice to get to know some of you. I think it would be great if the rest of you could also do the same. It would be nice for us to get to know who you are. And please keep an eye out for what Hannah will be writing as well on the chat, because at certain intervals in the presentation, Hannah will be sharing some very important links and resources. So I'd like to invite you to also keep an eye out on the chat, as long as it's not too distracting. So as Michael also mentioned, I highly encourage you to watch the videos. They're 1 hour video, and it's available in both languages, in Arabic and English, for the kickoff webinar that took place on October 14th. It's actually, as Michael mentioned, we took the audience through an overview of the We4F program, who the implementers are, who the partners are, what the goals are, and a little bit more about our team, but also an overview of 3 of the members of the 16 cohort organizations. So you'll watch them speak. You'll understand more about their experience in the application process, their advice to you as potential applicants, and also a little bit more about their businesses and how they fit the criteria. You get a bit of an understanding about how they fit some of the criteria that we're looking for. And also we go deeper into the selection. I mean, not deeper, but we provide an overview of what we're really looking for as a program in terms of the main criteria. And today we'll be digging more into that, into the eligibility and also in the application process. So the webinars are really very complementary. And if you feel like something may not be clear today, I would recommend that you watch the first webinar, and then of course, write to us if you feel like there are still some vague areas. So that was just a quick point before I start. So this was something that we discussed very briefly last time, and we'll be recapping it today because it's quite important for you to get an understanding of the application process. So the application process for the We4Food program is split into two phases. The first phase, which is the one that has opened and that's currently running, is the concept note stage, and this is followed by the full proposal stage. The deadline for the concept note stage is on the 25th of November by 5 p.m. GMT. And this is an online application form that consists of three main sections, which we will tour today together. And you can also obtain it through we4f.org /apply-MENA. This is the link that you click on that directly takes you to the page that you need to be on. If you end up finding yourself in we4f.org, you can always look for where to find MENA, and then it will direct you to the MENA webpage. So sometimes with traffic, this it may be a little bit slow to upload, but please, be patient. It should upload, and it's a very seamless software to use, the application software, which is called SM Apply. The full proposal stage is the second stage, and we will select about 50 applicants from the concept note stage who can submit a much more thorough full proposal with some of the documentation that will be required. So we expect that by the end of this process, we would select between 20 to 25 finalists to enter the pre-award phase, where we do some due diligence before finalizing the contract. Just also as a heads up, as Michael said, this is the second call for applications in the MENA region. We had one around the same time last year. And we have learned a lot from the process, and we have received a lot of feedback from the existing cohort. So we have done our best to really take into consideration this feedback and improve and make the application process much more seamless. So again, as a snapshot, and I would encourage you to watch the first kickoff webinar to get a little bit more details on this. But in terms of eligibility and selection, we look at 6 main categories. One, there's a basic set of conditions that are required to be met. One of them is that you are either based or clearly operating in the MENA region, in 10 countries that we're targeting in the MENA region. The second is We4F related. So we try to better understand if you are operating in the water and energy for food nexus. The third category is innovation. The fourth category is business aspects, your business model, financial aspects, etc. The fifth are the social aspects, and the sixth are environmental. So it's a very cohesive and complementary and comprehensive selection criteria that we look at, given the goals of the program that we also explain more thoroughly in the kickoff webinar. So as a summary, of course, when you go online and you download the solicitation document, you'll find a lot more details about eligibility, but here's really in a nutshell of what makes a company on a very high level eligible or ineligible. So first, we look very, very closely into the links with the water, energy for food, or water, energy and food nexus. So if that is not clear, or there's a weak link, or the applicant is not able to thoroughly showcase that link, then they're more likely to be ineligible. The second point is that we look for innovation, and by innovation we mean a product, a service, a technology, a solution. It doesn't necessarily have to be just a technology that operates in a better way compared to the status quo, or is able to be competitive against competition, or is able to be a more appealing solution compared to the existing alternatives in the market. So we're very understanding that by default in MENA region, a lot of the solutions that you may be providing, you may think that, okay, nobody else in the market has provided this before. And this is not entirely true, because your existing customers are probably using an alternative to the solution that you're providing. So even if it's not direct competition, even if it's indirect competition or an alternative, it's important for us to see that you can clearly articulate your innovative aspects, and that you are offering something truly innovative in the water, energy for food nexus space. So if that is not clear to us, then you're likely to be deemed eligible in the concept note phase. Another important point is that we are supporting mid to late stage organizations. So organizations that already have traction, they have already launched in their markets. So if you look on the right, projects that are still in the R&D phase or still in the pilot phase, those are likely to be deemed ineligible, because the objective of this program is really to scale up already operational organizations, be they for-profit or not-for-profit. And finally, another important eligibility checklist is that you have demonstrated actions or systems in place or models to enhance the access and affordability of your innovation for women, youth, and vulnerable groups. So if that is also not clear or not tangible, or if you are not able to provide evidence for it, then you're likely to be deemed ineligible. We also do not support large established companies whose technology is already used at a wide scale in the eligible countries. In terms of the applications, so your best resource is the website that we indicated earlier, which Hannah will also be sending you on the chat. So this is really a one-stop shop. As soon as you enter this website, you will basically get the chance to register for the webinars. So today is the second webinar. There's going to be a third webinar, which we will remind you about at the end of the session. There is a place where you can apply. So if you click on the top right button, this will take you straight to SM Apply, where you can begin your application process. And again, this may be slow to load. Most of the time it loads quite fast, but if it's slow, just be patient with it. Try it on different browsers, try it from your phone, try it from your laptop, and it will most likely open up. And very, very, very importantly, if you are someone who does not like to start an online application before preparing very well in advance and writing it down on with a pen and paper, then we encourage you to download either the Arabic or the English innovation solicitation document, call for innovation solicitation document, which is a very thorough document that has all the details that you need to know about the program, the partners, the selection criteria, and the application process. It even has the questions for both the proposal phase and the concept note phase, which is currently open right now. And it has all the resources that you need to be able to make your decision and to be able to prepare well in advance. So I highly encourage you to review these documents before jumping into filling out the application. Just to give you a quick sneak peek before I actually open SM Apply on my screen and show you what it looks like, to give you a more realistic feel. One of the things that I wanted to point out to you is that, again, because we've learned a lot from the first call for innovations, we wanted to also indicate to you some of the things that we are doing differently this time to make the application process a lot more seamless, and to also give you an idea about how we assess the applications that we get. So first of all, what you will see in every question is a weight. Here there's a percentage that is allocated to the different questions and the sub-questions. So with full transparency, you can see how much weight is allocated to each of these questions. Another key piece to read very thoroughly, and this is also in the solicitation document, not just in the online document, is the evaluation criteria. So here you'll get a sense on what the reviewers will be looking for when placing the scores on your answers. And this is written in the online form. You'll see it both in English and Arabic side by side. What's really important for you to know is that the weight is not representative of the importance of the question. We have a lot of questions, and we've had to distribute the weight among them based on the intensity of your response. But it's very important for you to know that we review the questions holistically. These questions are not reviewed separately and in a siloed manner. We review all the questions and then make a decision on the score that would be placed on this question based on a comprehensive understanding of the full application. Another important point is that the evaluation criteria really provides guidance on our priorities. So we encourage you to to think deeply about what we've written here in the evaluation criteria. At this phase, eligible concept note applications will be scored by 2 reviewers from the MENA RIH team. But we also, in addition to the scoring, we also carefully consider the comments that are written on each question and on each one of your applications. So it's not just a mechanical scoring process, but we also really thoroughly and think deeply about the comments that are being provided. And there is also a consensus process. And in the next stage, in the full proposal stage, the evaluators or the reviewers of your applications also include external members from the regional advisory body. And what's really important for you to know also is that we select stakeholders that could potentially be your partners or buyers or suppliers or investors to you in the future. So it's important to also be writing the application, keeping that in mind, keeping in mind that you could, through this application process, be building long-term partnerships. Another point that I would like to bring to your attention, and again, this is based on feedback that we got for the first application process, is that in the questions that may be more difficult to answer, or maybe you may need some inputs on how to think about it, we've included also illustrative examples within the question. So here, for example, we ask about the positive environmental impact of your organization, and then we give you examples of how what we mean by positive environmental impact, especially that this may be a hard question to answer for most of you who are already working in areas where you're generally offering more positive environmental impact than the status quo, but it's important for us to see how you're planning on scaling this up and leveraging it. So here you'll see that we always, in questions that could be a little bit unclear or maybe more difficult to answer, we always provide examples, illustrative examples for how you can think about your approach to this answer. So, and a really important section in the solicitation document that I pointed you to earlier, and again, this is provided in English and Arabic, is in the first couple of pages, you'll see a section called commonly used terms and definitions. So if you feel like there's a term that's not clear, or maybe is an acronym, or maybe you would like to see how we define it, you'll be able to find most of the terminologies and definitions in this table, under the commonly used terms and definitions. And if you if there's still some vagueness, you can, of course, write to us in an email before November 1st, and we will get back to you. So I would highly encourage you, if there's a term that you do not fully understand or you interpret it in a different way, I would encourage you to please check out this table to better understand what we mean by certain terminologies. So I will walk you through the concept note application right now. For you to know, while this is available online, you can also download an offline version. So I'll show you what it looks like online, and I'll show you the offline version as well. And we will skim through it very quickly. But as we go, there are some key definitions that we discovered from our first call for application that they may have been open to interpretation or unclear for previous applicants. So I actually will point you to some of these definitions as I'm walking you through the application, just to also give you an idea about what we mean by certain terminologies, and then we'll close with some key considerations and tips in a bit. So I just need a second to pull out the application form. Michael, can you see both screens right now? Or let's, for now, the PDF that I have.
Yes, now it came, yes. Mm-hmm.
Perfect, great. So once you enter the SM Apply, you'll be asked to quickly write the name of your application, and then it will take you to this page. So what you'll see here is that this is a test page, so nothing is complete. But most of the time on the left, you'll see basically the percentage of completion of the application. An excellent thing about this application is that you can save as you go, and you do not need to fill out the questions chronologically. You can take a quick look at all these 3 different sections, and then you can see which questions you would like to answer first, and you can save as you go. So it's not necessary that you answer all at once. So just to take you through a quick look, and I'm going to open this online and then show you the offline version, because I would like to show you how you can download this. Okay, as expected, my internet's not very reliable, so I'll show you the offline version. But as soon as this loads, you will see that you can actually straight away download an offline version of the online applications. So this is an offline version of the part related to basic acknowledgements and eligibility. And here we mainly ask you to provide us with permission to share certain data, and we ask for you to declare anything that we may need to know at an earlier stage. So this is a page that will take you probably 10 to 15 minutes to complete. So just to take you through a quick overview of what kinds of questions you'll see in this section. So here we ask that you, of course, have read and accepted the terms outlined in the call. We ask that you acknowledge compliance. We ask if you have a partnership plan to implement the intervention if you are outside of the MENA region. We ask about your presence in the MENA region. We ask if you work in at least 2 of the focus areas of the We4F program. This is because this is basic eligibility criteria that needs to be met. And then, of course, we ask for your permission to share the learnings and information with the USAID and other stakeholders. We ask you to confirm that the information that you have supplied is true and accurate, etc. So this is something that will take you probably 10 to 15 minutes. And again, you do not have to fill it out chronologically. You can fill it out as the first document, or you can fill it out towards the end of your application. The second section is related to the applicant details. So here we ask for a little bit more information about your organization, such as when you were established, when you began operations, and also some financials. So I'll walk you through this really quickly. Of course, we ask for the name of your organization and the name of your partner if you are applying with a partner. So if you are co-applicants, especially for those who may not be established in the MENA region, but who have partners operating in the MENA region. We ask you about the title of the specific innovation that's related to the We4F program. We ask for your website. We ask for the organization's DUNS number, which you can get more information from here. We ask for your address, and we differentiate between where you are incorporated, where your headquarters is, and where the countries of your main operations are. That differentiation is very important because with the We4Food program, it's crucial that we can guarantee that you have a solid presence in the MENA region. Here, we also ask about the difference between when you started operating. So if you can give us an idea about the year of the start of your operations compared to when you have incorporated per your legal registration documents. We ask about the type of your organization, and this is also a very clear drop-down menu where you can select what kind of an organization you are, if you're a nonprofit, if you're a for-profit, etc. And if your type of organization is not clearly indicated in the drop-down list, we ask that you clearly specify what it is in terms of your legal establishment papers. Of course, then we ask for your contact details, both primary and secondary. We ask about your employment. Again, as you can see, it's very important for us to understand how many employees you currently have, but also the split between male and female, considering that there's a very high weight placed on encouraging female participation. So we ask about the team. We also ask about the board members, and we ask about percentage ownership by women. We ask one more time about your focused area in terms of the water, energy for food nexus. And this is again, a drop-down menu, so it'll be very easy for you to select. We then also ask for the applicants to indicate the innovation types in which they're operating in. And this has a very clear definition. So again, you'll see drop down. And if you're not clear on what these terminologies are, you will find them in at the end of the solicitation document. And I'll also walk you through it in the presentation shortly. Here we ask a little bit more about your business model, if you're B2B or B2C. So if you sell directly to customers, or if you sell through a distributor or retailer, if you're B2B. And then we ask several questions about your customers and your end users, which I will walk you through in the technical proposal. But just as a very high level, again, as you know, a big part of this program is that we have interest in seeing how you will scale in reaching out to new customers and new end users. And I'll explain these definitions shortly. So here we ask about the total number of unique customers and the total number of unique end users, which I will explain shortly. We ask on average how many individuals directly benefit from the We4F innovation that you're applying with. How many end users belong to the base of the pyramid, which I will walk you through again in the technical proposal. We ask about how these end users, this is an extremely important point, is that we not only need to understand the number of customers and end users, but it's also very important for us to understand the ratio of vulnerable communities and women in these target customers and end users, but also how they are spread in the geographies in which you're operating in the MENA region. And then we ask about if there could be any data collection issues. So we ask about if there are data privacy policies which may require modification as a result of your participation in this program. We ask if the information about the customers and end users could be provided. And of course, once you enter the program, we provide you with a lot of support on how to do so and how to engage your customers and end users. We ask about the supporting documentation that you can provide. And then we ask if you anticipate that there may be any data collection challenges. And again, we will be working with you very closely on these challenges and how to mitigate them. And then we ask about environmental impact and innovation impact. So these are some of the high level questions that we ask about your customers, about your end users, about your organization, about employment, about gender. And then we get into the financials, which any mid to late stage company should have ready at hand. And if it's not, then we definitely encourage you before filling out the application to have these numbers ready. So we ask mainly what's of main concern is the revenues from the sales, from sales specifically. So your year-end operating income across time. So we ask you to provide that from between 2016 and 2021. We understand that in the last 2 years, there may have been a drop in revenues, and this is not part of the assessment criteria. This is just for us to understand how you've grown over time. And of course, if you're operating if you began operating after 2016, you can just leave these sections blank. Some more questions about your financial performance. And then we also ask about your fundraising in the last period. And we ask about your partnerships. So if you are applying, if there is a co-applicant, and if you have a local partner in one of the MENA countries, we ask about this partnership and how long it's been operational. And then a few more questions that are related to your operations. So we ask if your We4F innovation would require construction or land development. We ask if you use herbicides or pesticides. And then, there's several environmental questions that we ask. And then we ask about, again, like I said, your fundraising strategy, your investment strategy, how much you're willing, how much you're aiming to seek in the next period. Because again, this is a big part of what we do in this program. And then we ask about your intellectual property and if you have any legal proceedings. And then we ask, of course, about how you heard about the Week for F call for innovations. This section, if you have the financial documents ready and if you have the information about your partnership agreements, if you are not operational in MENA, if you're going to co-apply with a local partner, then this section will take about probably 20 to 30, maximum an hour of your time, assuming that all this information is ready at hand. So now to get into the beef, which is the third part of the application process, and this is the technical approach. This is the section which is split into 3 sections. There's the innovation viability, which is 40% of the score. And then there's the business and financial viability. And then finally, there's the ESG component, which is an environmental, social, and governance component. So I'm going to walk you through this really, really quickly because the questions are very self-explanatory. But in the process, I'd like to also point you to some of the key definitions. And in case you have any questions, we highly encourage you to please email them to us straight away or anytime before the 1st of November. So the first question is really about, okay, what do you do? What's your business model? What's your innovation? And what differentiates you from competition? So as I said earlier, I'm just going to show you my screen regarding the definition of innovation. And of course, this presentation will be provided to you and will be at hand within the next 2 weeks. So by innovation, what we mean is not that you came up with a breakthrough product that nobody has done in the market before. What we are really looking for here is to understand how what you're offering may be unconventional compared to what exists in the market, how it's new, how it may be modified. And this is in terms of the products, the services, the solution that you're offering. And again, as I said earlier, we're looking into how this compares to your direct competition, but also your indirect competition or alternatives. So for example, yes, solar PV pumps are definitely innovative in many of the countries in the MENA region, but it's not enough to just say, okay, nobody else is operating in this space in my country. Your current, farmers or your current customers or end users may be using other technologies such as diesel, or they may be using hybrid technologies. So how do you really compare to them in terms of product technology and in terms of the holistic solution that you're offering? So as it says here, innovation is not necessarily a product innovation or a technology innovation. We also seek an understanding of what is your business model innovation, what is your supply chain innovation, what's your end user financing innovation, etc. So we understand that innovation comes in many different shapes and forms. So it's really important that you really help us understand what currently exists in the market that you're operating in and how you differentiate or how you compete as compared to that. So another important point regarding your customers and end users is really understanding how they are currently operating. So what are their challenges, and what are the barriers preventing them from adopting water, energy for food solutions, including your solution. So it's really important for us to see your understanding of the current context in which you're operating in. Another point, which I mentioned I will go through a few minutes ago, is this difference between customers and end users. As you know, in this program, a key eligibility criteria is that if the solution that you offer is less than $1,000, it's important that we see that cumulatively, since you began operations, you were able to reach at least 5,000 end users. If your product is above $100, then you need to have reached at least 1,000 end users since you began operations. And what's really important for us to see is how this customer and end user base will grow over time and what your plan is to grow that. So as a quick overview, what is the difference between a customer and an end user? This is the question that we got asked a lot in the last call. So I'd like to quickly summarize it, but again, I encourage you to read the definition in the solicitation document. A customer, and customers are people that you're all familiar with, because they're the ones that you directly sell to. They directly purchase your product or service. Depending on your business model, if you're B2C, your customers in the case of the We4Food program are farmers and or food consumers. In B2B, they are the distributors or retailers or wholesalers, etc., that sell your product on your behalf and who sell to farmers and food consumers. So we're interested to learn more about your customers and your end users in the agriculture value chain and in the food production value chain. An end users include your customers, but it's a lot more broad than that. So end users are anyone, they can be individuals or entities who clearly and measurably benefit from your innovation. So they can include suppliers in your supply chain. They can include family members that are operating with the farmer that you're targeting on the land. And they could also include your operators or the workers working, for example, in the food processing facility. But it must be made very clear how you directly reach out to them, how they directly benefit from your technology in terms of water and or energy savings. And it must be quantifiable because you will be asked to provide evidence of their benefit. As I said earlier, it's also very important for us to understand the share of women and the share of vulnerable groups in your target end users. And it's also extremely important for us to see your commitment to them. So your commitment to not just your existing end users, but also to growing that end user base. So you'll see here, there's very, very high focus on understanding your relationship with your customers, your relationship with your end users, how much you understand about them, and also how you plan to grow that customer and end user base. So here you'll see that there are several parts that speak to that. So here we ask you to show us your understanding of their needs and motives to adopt your innovation. We also ask you to demonstrate how might these customers and end users need to modify what they're already doing to be able to adopt your innovation, and what you're planning on do to increase that adoption. These adoption rates. We ask you to indicate and quantify these end users and your customers, and to split them by the share of women and poor or vulnerable groups. And then we move on to, so we said innovation viability, that was 40%, and that was mainly understanding the part about end users and customers and also your business model and your innovative aspects. Then we get into the nitty-gritty of the business. So here we get into the business and financial viability, and that's 35% of the concept note. The first question is about your total addressable market in the MENA region, in the 10 countries that we're targeting in the MENA region. So what does that mean? We're trying to get an understanding of who are all the customers who can buy your product, your We4Food innovation, and all the possible products that you could sell given the markets that you're operating in. And they must be the ones that are related to the innovation that you're applying with. Then we try to also understand how much do you currently have from this market. And again, we understand that access to data and access to market information may be difficult in the MENA region, but what's super important for you to explain is how you reached these numbers. So if there are credible sources that you can refer to, please include them. If there are calculations or assumptions that you've made, please include them. And again, you will see this in the evaluation criteria, how we assess the quality of your answer. Here, of course, under business and financial viability, we ask about the revenues and more specifically the share of revenues from your We4F innovation. We ask how you plan to expand, because again, this program is really focused on helping you scale up. So we ask to better understand your plans to scale up in the countries or regions beyond the ones that you're already operating in. And we ask about the investment needs to be able to achieve this expansion, to be able to achieve to reach a larger customer and end user base. We ask about your expected sources of funds other than the We4F program, as well as your in-kind contributions. We ask about your average price, because as I said earlier, it's important for us to have an idea about your average price of the solution that you offer to the customers and end users that you're currently working with, to better understand if you fit our eligibility criteria. Then we ask about your team, of course, as any investor would as well. We ask about the governance model. The final section, which is 30% of the concept note stage, so you'll see that the three sections are almost equally split among each other. Here we look more into ESG. So what is ESG? Just as a quick overview. Overall, when we discuss ESG, we're looking at the average, or we're basically looking at the degree of sustainability of your organization. In the previous section, we covered most of the questions related to governance, such as the team and your existing governance structure. In this section, we focus more on environmental and social. For environmental, we're really zooming into practices related to water management, natural resource management, and climate resistance. These are the three main aspects that we look into more specifically. In terms of the social aspect, we focus a lot, as you saw earlier, on gender integration, but also on poverty reduction and base of the pyramid, which I will explain to you shortly. In terms of governance, as I mentioned, we covered in the previous section the team structure. So it's important for us to see the balance between the different team members, how the decision-making takes place, and how accountability is distributed. So this is the last definition that I'll walk you through before we get into the section, to keep it in mind. What we mean by base of the pyramid is mainly economically marginalized groups. So those groups could be smallholder farmers who are economically marginalized. They could be poor food consumers, and they could also be individuals in the food or agriculture value chain who are below the poverty line. And if you do have that number about the poverty, what is the minimum wage or the poverty line in your country, it's very important for you to be able to articulate that in your application. As we saw in the previous questions, a key focus of this program is to understand how you will enhance their adoption of your technology or of your solution, of your RE4F innovation, how you will make it more accessible, and then how you will and what the customer acquisition or end user acquisition costs would be, and what the efforts would be to get to this community. So I'll walk you through very, very quickly through this section. You'll see that the questions are structured very similarly. First, we ask about what are the arrangements that you have undertaken or are planning to undertake to make your innovation more accessible or affordable to the base of the pyramid. And then we ask about the obstacles. What obstacles are they currently facing? And then we do the same for women, as gender is a very, very crucial component of this program. We're trying to understand here what you've done or are planning to do to make your innovation more accessible or affordable to women. And then again, we also ask about what the obstacles are based on your understanding of this market. Then we get into the environmental questions. So we ask you to describe both the positive and the environmental impacts. For positive, we're looking to understand that you deeply understand the positive impacts, but also how you plan to leverage and scale these existing environmental impacts. With the negative impacts, we're interested to understand if you have a holistic understanding of how you may impact different aspects of your supply chain and the markets in which you're operating. And again, here we provide an illustrative example to support you in answering this question. And what's more important is to understand, okay, how are you planning on mitigating these negative environmental impacts? So in the positive, we're looking at how you're planning on scaling them up. In the negative, how you're planning on mitigating this impact. Finally, we ask about the climate risks that you anticipate, and also the partnerships that you would need to concretize to be able to run your operations sustainably and reach a wider base of customers and end users. So I know this may seem overwhelming, but again, I think as Dr. Nahmet mentioned and as Michael mentioned, this process is very, very, very thorough. We've taken the feedback of the previous cohort in the way we phrased the questions and in the way we structured the application. And it's truly an enjoyable process once you get into it, because it really forces you to think very deeply about your internal operations and your impact on the external environment. So just to wrap up, as you saw in the evaluation criteria, what we really look for is clarity in the way you respond to the questions, depth, and evidence wherever possible. So wherever you have examples of work that you've done, or documents that you can provide, or evidence that you can provide on the impact that you have created, this would be very, very helpful in understanding and helping us understand your commitment and seriousness. We also recommend that in terms of the numbers that you report numbers which you can reliably provide data for. So always back them up with sources. Make sure that you could provide in the future documentation to prove these numbers. My third piece of advice is, and you'll see this throughout the questions, always compare between what you're already doing now and what you're planning on doing. Again, this program is here to help you accelerate your growth plans. It's here to help you transform. It's here to help you scale. So there's no shame, even if you don't have the certain processes in place now. You can describe what are these processes in place, but also let us know what your future plans are, because we are here with you for the next few years to help you get to that point. So please always differentiate between what you currently do and what you plan to do, and be very, very transparent about what you plan to do, even if you haven't taken concrete steps towards these actions. This is a very, very, very important point. Fourthly, quantify your milestones and your targets wherever possible. And finally, this was something that we really, that was a very common feedback for our first cohorts, is while we understand that many of you work with business models that are much more efficient than what may exist in the existing markets where you operate in, but always try to present both sides, even if it's difficult to do. So always provide the positive impact, but please also provide the negative impact and also your mitigates and plans to eliminate these negative impacts. On a logistical level, you may submit your application in English, Arabic, and French. The questions are only in English and Arabic, but we also accept French answers. So you could go ahead and, if you would like to translate the English and Arabic documents, you can go ahead and do so. But even though the questions are in English and Arabic, we also accept French responses. So you can respond in French. And again, we cannot stress more on starting ahead of time. There's no need to fill out the application chronologically, as I showed you, and it also can be saved online, but we encourage you to download it first. Use a pen and paper in filling out that application, because you will have several drafts, and then start uploading your information online. But there's no shame in starting, and showing interest by opening up the application and signing up. Thirdly, we encourage you to go through several rounds of internal revisions by different team members on your team. Please back up your answers with reliable sources, and finally, enjoy the learning and reflection process. We got some very, very strong feedback from our first cohort on this process. It may be a bit very, very, very detailed, more than some of the applications that you may have seen previously, but it's truly a learning journey, and we hope that you can take it and run away with it and have fun with it. There's also a blog that we wrote in English about stressing a little bit more on these 5 points, and also providing you with resources which you can resort to back up your answers, and a few more tips and tricks. So I think Hannah will be sharing that on the group shortly. Michael, over to you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Irene, for this very comprehensive walkthrough of the whole call document. If you maybe can unshare your screen, and I can share quickly mine. I want to show a couple of more things. Great. So let me just quickly share my screen. And just let me go to I would say for you at the moment, the most important website, if you want to apply for this call. You can see it again in my browser, and we've shared it already quite many times in the chat. It's the we4f.org/apply MENA. That's where all the information that you need to know right now is all structured, and it's all there, right? So again, just to highlight, right, here you can register for our next webinar, which will be happening on the 4th of November. If you want to apply, as Irene has explained you how that whole process works, you can apply online. You can do that step by step. Of course, you can also do that first on paper and then put it in the online application form later. That's also possible. You will find that here under apply. Now, if you want to read those 75 pages first, what this whole call is all about and all the details, that you will find here, either the English version or here the Arabic version. And the page goes further, right? I mean, here's a few more information, right? But what I definitely want to show you here is the application process and timeline. This is very important. We will be not accepting late applications or late questions. So please make sure that you really follow this process. So the next date is really the 1st of November, which is the deadline for the questions. So if you do have any questions, please write to us, write them to our email address, we4f@berrytech.org, and here you will see we will collect everything, and then what we will do on November 4th, we will actually go through all of those questions that you might have, and we will try to answer them as good as possible. And we will again also record, and we will also have all the answers in writing then later for you as a reference. Of course, most important is then November 25th. That is when you have to submit your application on the online form. We'll only be accepting those online forms, so please make sure that you have it already, and don't do it 3 minutes before the deadline. Please do it a day or 2 or 3 earlier, or even earlier if you're ready and done. It would really help us with the whole work. Afterwards, we will review everything, and then should you come to the next round, the proposal stage, we will inform you accordingly about all the next steps. And also please note here, the last point is the application resources. Everything that we were talking about today, you can find here. The FAQ documents, the solicitation document. You can watch the first webinar here. If you want to watch this one again, you will also find it soon in a couple of days on this website, and all the other information that will come up, we will all put it here on this website. So check for updates and news. Good. So with that, let me quickly change my screen. We actually already come to our end of this webinar. We were a bit quicker than expected, but I think that's also fine. I think it's more important that you think on what you want to do and how you want to apply and with what innovation you want to apply. Again, if you have questions, write us an email, and then we will collect that and we will discuss that in our next webinar. Great. So with that, I would, if there is no more comments from Irene or Hannah, are there any last comments from you? No? Good. But then with that, we can call it a day. I hope you're inspired. I hope you have some good ideas, and we very much look forward to your questions so we can actually talk about them in our next webinar, and much more. We're looking forward to see some new, cool, innovative innovations in the field of water, energy, and food, and see that we can work together for the next years to come. So thank you very much for that, and then I'm looking forward to to meet you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for the interpretation as well.